Welcome to Rogue Bogues. This is episode 25. A lot to get through. We just recorded for about 30 minutes and realized we weren't recording. Take two. Had an issue with my SD card. So thank you very much, Bogues. We're going to rehash all this. We're talking for a good 30, 40 minutes, but we just got out of the Brooklyn-Milwaukee game. We delayed this podcast, so it's probably almost past midnight now in Dallas. Pro, what's going on?
Fuck. We're all into it, Bogues. I gave it my all. I don't know. I think I fucking blew my load now. I don't think I'm fucking, ready to go forward with this, but I'm going to give it give the old college try now.
It's the old trial and error.
Great game though, man. Great fucking game to finish game 7 with the Milwaukee series. What'd you think of the game?
Awesome game. A lot to talk about in it. I think Drew Holiday making shots late in that fourth quarter was huge. A guy that hasn't had a great series. I think Giannis with the free throw challenge continued to stay aggressive and wanted to get to the line even though he wasn't shooting it that well. I think he still shot it better than his season percentage. He airballed a few of them, but his percentage was decent. Stayed aggressive. Middleton made some huge shots for him. Brook Lopez made some big plays, blocked a Kevin Durant jumper. And then on the flip side, Kevin Durant, to me, unbelievable. Just single-handedly kept them in the game, made that tough shot to put it into OT. And to me, I've got him penned as one of the, if not the best pure scorer of all time, as far as any spot on the floor. So you've got MJ, you've got Kobe, but a guy that's 7 foot tall, even though he says he's 6'10", he's 7 foot, long wingspan, handles the ball like a Kyrie Irving type. He was posting early in that game against Drew Holiday. He was hitting threes on PJ Tucker. He was crossing over Chris Middleton. I just haven't seen a guy with the tool bag of a Kevin Durant and the height and skill. And I think he will go down as the greatest scorer of all time when it's all said and done.
Yeah. If he played enough games this year, I thought he was the MVP. I thought he was the best player just because he could score on any spot of the floor. He's a phenomenal player. And he's the closest thing, maybe him and Kawhi, the closest thing to those old school players that are just sort of focused. They're in tune. They work out. They know no bullshit. They take care of their bodies. They're competitors, and they could fucking score, and they could score for days. And it's almost impossible to defend the guy. And it was a hell of a game, a hell of an effort that they had. They fell a little short, but I agree with you. I think he's one of the more. I think he's one of the best scorers of all time. Just because, look, with that height, with that wingspan, he gets his shot off easily, whenever he wants to. And then if you try to run him off the line, he can handle it like a point guard, and he could just get to the basket, finish. He had, I think coming in the league, he was a little bit questioned about his body. He had that Rashad Lewis type body, but man, he's done a great job taking care of himself. He can handle the ball. He shoots it from deep easily. And, man, what a great game tonight. Great game. Shout out to the fucking training staff. They got, everybody playing 48 minutes. It seemed like there was like 6 players in each team that played.
50s with overtime. And that's another thing I was going to bring up. There's often people out there that talk about load management as the key phrase that has kind of come up the last 5-10 years in the NBA and the NBL and all sports about minute limits and keeping guys kind of fresh. I think it somewhat showed why it's important at times. Kevin Durant played every minute last game, the game before the one today. I think it was game 6. Played every minute tonight and then airballed a potential game winner. And I'm not saying it was simply because of that. It was some great defense. There was a bunch of factors. But, there's a reason why you got to get some rest every now and then for guys and keep their legs fresh. And even if they got through this series playing KD, who's a world-class athlete in phenomenal shape, it can take its toll. It can take its toll towards an injury. It can take a toll towards missing a free throw because you've got no legs. Or in this case, a three that he makes a lot of the times late games. So the load management thing, I think, is more important than sometimes people give it credit for.
Yeah, especially in playoff time. And the training staff and the medical staff, they meet all year about, trying to work, all those like load management days and, taking days off. They're all doing it for this moment to try to rest guys and get them in the best possible position. But when you're only playing 6 guys and, mostly just 5 guys, it's really hard. It's really hard to, 50 plus minutes, it takes a toll. Plus you got PJ Tucker on you. You got, game 7. It's been a long year anyway with the injury stuff that he had to deal with. It's, man. And he carried his team and he brought it to the brink of winning a game. and he just came up a little short. Dude, he played his balls off. It was it's one of those things, it's like a Kobe-esque effort, man, Jordan-like effort. And that's why he's such a fun player to watch. He's an entertaining player. He does it. He tries to do it the right way, the best he can. And man, it was a great game. Hats off to fucking Milwaukee too, man. Hats off to you, Bogues. You're a bucket hard.
From Milwaukee buck, and I was pulling for them. I love KD. I love his game, but I'm not a super team fan. I don't like super teams. I don't like guys all kind of mix in and come together to try and win a championship. Even though I joined one, a bit of a hypocrite, but
yeah.
I love the Milwaukee Bucks. They developed Giannis, they drafted him, they built around him. Now they've got a chance to go to a conference finals and potentially a finals. I think that was fun to watch. And just how big these playoff series are for people. I mean, if the Bucks lost this game, I don't think Mike Budenholzer, Bud, their coach, would probably be even allowed on the flight. He would be reading right now that he would have been fired, So, and it was it was a game that came down an air ball shot by one of the best players in the world in Kevin Durant. And that's how small it is. And now Bud's gone to a conference finals and can potentially get his team to a finals. And it was a phenomenal series. I think this playoffs in general, has had a lot of surprises. And I think that's what you want. I think the Warriors run, which was fantastic, and I was part of a few years of it. Once they got Durant, it was kind of somewhat boring because you just knew you're like, I'm going to circle Golden State to win here and the rest will take care of itself. And, the bubble year and this year, it's like you just don't know who's in the mix. Injuries are playing a huge part. As you mentioned, COVID, home court advantage has gone out the window for the most part. So to see a game go 7 like this and see the underdog team win, bloody-tastic, and a big fan of it as a former Milwaukee Buck. I'd love to see them go out of teams remaining. If they could win a championship for me, I'd be a happy man, bro.
Yeah, why wouldn't you be? You got Giannis, you got Middleton. They're really fun to watch. Drew Holiday, even though he didn't have a great game or great series, he steps up. You got DiVincenzo, he's hurt. Guys are stepping up. Connaughton's stepping up. PJ Tucker did a fantastic job defensively, and he's one of those guys who just fucks the game up. And they're a fun team to watch. Hey, hopefully they can go as far as they can. They got great players. They got great fans. They got ownership that supports the team. It's funny, like Bud. Everyone's kicking Bud out. Going to lose his job, blah, blah, blah. And now he's toast of the town. And it's funny how they just forget. And we'll talk about that and other coaches and other series that we'll discuss. But it's just funny how people jump on that bandwagon of when they kick you when you're down and then they fucking blow you when they love you, when you're doing well. It's got to be fucking aggravating. But, that's just with the money everybody's making at that level, I guess that's the shit you got to deal with.
Yeah, and social media doesn't help. Everyone's got an opinion. Everyone's thoughts get out there, and we're all guilty of it at times. There's probably no worse time to be a coach where you can just knuckle down and focus on you. You've got all these distractions, and now you've got a staff of 10 coaches under you, and then you've got all these scouts and analytics people and GMs and assistant GMs. So it's a different time. But kudos to the Bucks. They will face, which is a hard one to talk about. They're going to face the winner of Philly and Atlanta. That's a game 7 as well. Goes tomorrow. Been an interesting series for a number of reasons. I think Atlanta squandered a chance to win this series in game 6. I think if they were going to win it, it was going to be on their home floor. I think going to a game 7 in Philly, even though the season is upside down and everything we pick kind of goes the other way, I think Philly should win this at home and move on. I think Philly, the problem for them, is our Australian brethren in Ben Simmons. He's, the free throw thing for him. I've been there. I've been in that dark place before. It can get pretty lonely when you're getting hacked on purpose and having to go to the line. I wasn't really in a spot where Ben is, though, where I was, 20, 25, 30%, whatever he is. That's, tough. And the problem for Benny is he's not a three-point shooter. He's not a jump shooter. He's an aggressive, get to the rim, draw fouls, guys, trying to just beast guys in there, and usually does. Takes away from that all of a sudden if he doesn't want to get to the line. And we've seen it these last 2 games. Early on in quarters where they're not in the bonus, he'll be much more aggressive and try to attack. Even if he gets fouled, he can pretend like he wasn't shooting so he doesn't have to get to the line. If you watch the games, when they're in the bonus, he's taking the foot off the gas. He'll usually give the ball up early in transition and run to the dunker. And I think his offensive firepower has gone out the window. But the problem with all this is, and that Doc has, is he guards very, very well. He's an all-league defensive player. Made the all-defensive team, first team, I believe. And him and Matisse Thybulle are doing a pretty good job of making Trae Young's going to get his buckets, but they're making him work for it with their length. So Doc's issue is, I take out Ben and then we score a bucket. How are we getting a stop on Trae Young? So how do you see all that with Ben? And do you think they get through Game 7, number one, with that all going on? And do you think they can even get further with the woes of Ben Simmons?
I think it's going to come up more and more. I do think they're going to win Game 7. I think they're just too good. I think Atlanta's too inexperienced to win Game 7 on the road, and I think they just have too much experience and talent behind them, and they got a great coach in Doc. I do think the Simmons thing is going to be a problem. We talk about Giannis and Ben all year about free throws, but the big difference between Giannis and Ben is Giannis actually wants to be there. It doesn't matter if the guy goes 3 for 30 from the line. He gets to the line, he does his routine, and he doesn't mind it. Now, he might get a little fucked up depending on, the results of these things, but he still wants to be there. Ben doesn't. And we talked in other pods about my work with Rajon Rondo when he came to Dallas, when he came in about 45% from the line. And, it took him a while, a couple months, but last 20 games of the year, he shot about 74% from the line. And the reason why is he wanted to, first of all, he put the work in, put the work in before practice, after practice, at night, shot on Christmas. The guy wanted to get his, worked in his free throw. And then he wanted to get there. He dealt with struggles from the line, but the more and more you get there and the more competitive you are and the positive attitude you have coming to the line, as long as your routine stays the same and you work through the fundamentals, eventually it's going to turn the corner. But with Ben, he just doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to get there. So it is a big problem. It's going to become problems. It's going to become very problematic when, you see these playoff games, especially the deeper rounds you get, the games get closer. The games get within a possession or two, and you're missing a few free throws down the stretch. If you're coming out, like you get fouled 3 straight times and 3 straight possessions, you're coming out with 1 point or 0 points in the possession. And then the other team comes down and makes the 3 or makes the and 1 or 2. Now you're putting your team in this hard way, team in harm's way. I understand what Doc's dilemma is about, not putting him on the floor at times, but in my opinion, talent, he's one of the best players you have. Not the best, but he's one of the best. And having him on the floor, I think you get hurt not having him on the floor. But when it comes to the free throw shooting, that comes into play. Yeah, it's a dilemma. I can't say that I have an answer for it because, I could see why you would think both sides of this argument.
Well, if you're Doc and you take him out because they're going to hack him, and then you get an empty possession, and then you're coming down defensively, and Trae Young breaks his man down, doesn't have a lot of length on him, has a Korkmaz on him or someone like that, and gets a wide open, gets a good shot off that he wouldn't have got off against Ben Simmons. Then you're having that mental warfare in your own mind. If you're Doc of like, shit, maybe we'll just take the 2 missed free throws, but we know we're going to get locked down defensively. So he's in a bit of a conundrum. I think doing the hockey subs works to an extent, but if it's a live ball play and you can't get Ben back in there for a vital defensive possession, then I think you're behind the 8 ball defensively. So for those out there that are just like, oh, they should just bench him, whenever it's crunch time. It's not as easy as that. You got to keep him out there. And the point you made about Giannis, I think Giannis being the number one guy on his team helps his confidence to an extent of like, it's do or die. If I do well, we're doing. If I do bad, we're dying. It's on me. I need to, whether I go 5 for 15 from the line or 10 for 10, I'm getting every touch. I think Ben isn't the number one guy on that team offensively. I don't think he's 2 or 3, to be honest with you. I think, you've got Tobias in there as well. I think Seth Curry's now probably jumped over Ben offensively as far as how important he is to score, and then Embiid's the clear number 1. So I think Ben can kind of get in his head a little bit of like, well, okay, we can just defer to Joel, and I can just stand here in the dunker, and then that mentally just takes away from his aggressiveness. So it is interesting to see what they're going to do, whether they Doc was adamant during the regular season and even early in the playoffs. He was on record commenting that he's not going to bench Ben, he's not going to take him out when they're hacking, blah, blah, blah. Well, he did it the last couple of games. And then you've got that whole, does Ben then feel disrespected by Doc? That whole game of one of your superstars isn't happy. I hope that's not the case. I'm not saying it is, but that can rear its ugly head as well. And that can also, hurt his confidence a little bit too, for thinking like, hey, shit, if I don't make these 2, I just got hacked. If I don't make these 2, am I seeing a guy run to the scorer's table straight away? So it is a tough situation for the year in.
Yeah, these other factors does sort of creep its ugly head because of social media, and people are on it constantly, and they read it, and they sort of read into it and they believe it. Hey, look, a head coach has a million different decisions they got to make during the game, and that's why I don't really question coaches a lot, because of the fact that it is a hard job. And whatever decision you make, it doesn't matter if it's a lineup, a play, a player, you got your positives and negatives. You give something up, something good happens out of it. You get an advantage, but you also get a disadvantage to certain things. It could be a matchup defensively or offensively, depending on the player you put out there at the time in which you put them out there. So look, Doc's just got to go, just like a player, as a coach, you just got to go with your gut and you got to go with the feel. He makes the decisions, and everybody has an opinion. You have an opinion. I have an opinion. The 8 people who fucking listen to us get a fucking opinion. We all have opinions. And I just think that, look, the head coach has to make his and he has to live and die by it. But they're a good team. They're fun. Embiid's done really well in the series, even though with the knee, I was expecting to be a cripple throughout the whole series. He's done well. I mean, at times, sometimes he gets shut down, but for the most part, he's done well. And, it's interesting. It's going to be interesting what Simmons does, here on in, as far as, being subbed in, subbed out in certain situations. But if you want to be a superstar in this league and you want to be that person that everybody relies on, you got to embrace getting to the free throw line, and you got to deal with it. And it's demons. You got to deal with those demons. And I understand it's embarrassing missing shots, but you got to say, fuck it. I got to get on a roll, make a couple in a row, and then just roll with it. And continue to work on it, but you got to embrace being there, because if you're a coach, everybody sees it that he doesn't want to be there. Of course, they're gonna fucking hack a shack on a kid, and they're gonna force him to get to the line. I would, with Giannis, I would have put him on the line 30 fucking times a game in this series and figured out if he's gonna make free throws or not. Now, of course, I'm joking a little bit, but seriously, like, if you see somebody who's struggling at the line and doesn't want to be there, just put him on the line all day and force him to fucking do something.
And not only that, it stymies your offensive flow too. So if you've got star players on your team, a Joel Embiid or Seth Curry's rolling from 3, and you just go to the hack for give him 16 straight free throws, 8 straight trips to the line, it's kind of deflating. And then it stymies the flow of Joel hasn't touched it for a while. Seth hasn't touched it for a while, So there are some positives to it that can just junk up a game, and that's why teams go to it. They take that assessed gamble, and we saw it at times. Land would come down, hit a 3, and they'd hack, and they'd cut into that lead. And it's just something that I think if Ben just goes with a mindset of, I've got to go at least 1 for 2, but I'm going to try to go 2 for 2. If he just knocks one for 2, 1 for 2, 2 for 2, then they'll have to stop doing it because he's getting over a point of possession. But if it's empty possessions, and then like you said, you can see in his face that he doesn't want to touch that thing again, team's going to keep doing it, and there's no other way out of it than making him. And that's what, when I used to get hacked sometimes towards the end of my career, post elbow surgery and whatnot, that's what guys would say. Coach would be like, just focus on knocking one down. Just these 2 free throws that you have, just focus on them. Don't focus about what happens if I miss these 2, what happens if I get subbed out, what happens if they do it again. Don't worry about all that. And at times it affected my game, there's no doubt about it, but you got to try to, I guess, push through it, and that's just the way it goes. But let's move on from that series. We'll go to the Clippers and Jazz, which was a very interesting series. The Jazz started off amazingly in that series, 2-0. The Clips clawed back. Kawhi did his knee in, I believe, game 4. Maybe it was game 4 or 5?
I think it was 5. No.
4.
I think it was 4. I think it was 4.
They won 2 straight, and they won 2 straight without Kawhi, because I think I made a joke about Ty Lue making an adjustment of the series by benching Kawhi and getting those 2 wins. But the Jazz just really imploded. There's a lot of talk around why, which we'll get to now, but I had 2 things. There's the Rudy Gobert factor about all the shit he's copping now about it. He should have got taken out of the game, which you'll talk about. And the other one for me was Joe Ingles and his role, maybe the Australian bias in me, but it felt like whenever Conley was in and out of the lineup all year, and it would just, he was hurt and then he wasn't, he was hurt and then he wasn't. I felt like when he was out of the lineup, Joey's usage went up. He's very good out of the pick and roll. He just takes his time. But when Conley was in the lineup, Joe was really a 4th, 5th option offensively. He wasn't involved as much usage-wise. He was more a spot-up shooter, which he's very good at as well. But I felt like they were better at times with Joe handling the ball, putting Donovan at 2. When Conley was there, it didn't equate. But talk to us about the Rudy Gobert hate and how you think that affected the series.
It's funny, same thing with the media, right? Quinn Snyder, a.k.a. Utah, he, for the last 2 years, people are saying, everybody in the media is saying how much of a genius he is. He's a smart coach. He's a very good coach. And I think he's done a great job. They did a great job building the organization. But now, Rudy, especially last game, he gets burnt. I think he was a minus 23, and everybody's killing Quinn Snyder all night about why you get him out of the game, why not get out of the game. I feel as though, look, Rudy Gobert is one of the more dominating defensive presence big men in the league in the last 10 years or so. I mean, the guy's very good. Block shots. You beat somebody on the perimeter, he's still going to rim protect. He's still going to protect, to protect baskets. But now all of it, you take him out of the game because another team's going small, and you're going to hurt yourself. Like we talked about, every decision you make, it might be a little bit better, but you're going to lose something. Well, I would much rather him protecting the rim with Paul George attacking the rim and, Mann and all those guys attacking the rim, rather than having nobody back there or Derek Favors back there. I think, everybody's a fucking genius on Twitter and saying, well, they should have went small ball and did this and did that. But look, this is what got him there. Well, playing Rudy Gobert, I'm sure many teams tried to go small on him throughout the year. Rudy Gobert is what got him here. And I think he just went with his gut. But that's just how it is. Like Ty Lue was being compared to a 7th grade coach in the first 2 games of the Dallas series, first 2 games of this series, going down 0-2. And now he's Red Auerbach, because he wins the series. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like either one way or another. Either a good coach, you think he's a good coach or he's not, but that's just the fucking bullshit you got to deal with.
What have you done for me lately?
Exactly. No question.
I think the Rudy thing, for sure, like their number 1 seed, what were they defensive? Were they number 1 defensively? They would have been top 5. I don't know if they were number 1, but they were up there. It was all predicated upon we're sending guys to Rudy at the bucket because we have confidence in him altering a shot, getting a deflection, or getting a block shot, right? So they've done that for 35, 40 minutes a game for the whole series. So these people out there that are like, should have benched Rudy, played him 15 minutes. Then what you're going to see is Paul George crosses his guy over, gets 2 feet in the paint. That's no longer a floater or a contested 1-foot fadeaway runner. That is, or a pull-up jumper. A lot of times Paul George would get to the dots and then spin back and shoot a fadeaway. That's now a dunk. That's what people don't understand. Now, Favors isn't a great rim protector. He's okay. George and Niang, if they go small, isn't a rim protector at all. So now you're going away from what made you great. And they have some, let's be honest, they have some slower guys defensively on the perimeter as well. Like, Joey's a solid defender, great high IQ defender, but not the fastest guy. Bogdanovic has his moments, isn't known as a fantastic defender. But they knew I can get away with a little bit more because Rudy's behind me. So now take Rudy out. Those guys, I think, would look worse. So these people that think it's just a matter of, all right, we're just going to bench Rudy and small ball, we're going to out small ball them, that was not Utah. And Utah don't really have a small ball lineup to compete with a small ball lineup of the Clippers, or if they faced Phoenix down the line or whatever. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. Quinn, obviously, they did choke a little bit, and much like the Denver series last season, up 3-1, they lost that. I think, Quinn's going to have some questions to answer the next season. I think he's a good coach. But if he doesn't get over that hump, he's probably going to be in that same position that Coach Bud with Milwaukee is in right now. Whereas if there's one more early exit or second round exit in the playoffs, he'll be on the hot seat and could be gone. But they're probably going to have to make some changes. I mean, their bench is one. I mean, Jordan Clarkson was great for him, 6th man of the year. Great scoring. Georges Niang and Favors were pretty much the rotation for him. I'm not sure what they have in the form of draft picks. Probably not much there. But they probably need another veteran or 2 on a buyout type deal. The problem is it's Utah. No veteran wants to go and play in Utah. It's one of those cities that no one's going to take a buyout to generally go to. You never see them going there. They're always going to LA or one of the biggest cities, Cleveland when LeBron was there. So it'll be interesting to see how I don't think they need a blow up, but they probably need to tweak a few things. And then the other thing is, are we biding time until Donovan Mitchell gets frustrated and says, get me the hell out of here?
Yeah, I think every team sort of looks at their superstar and asks that question, and that's just that's what we're dealing with in today's game. Just the players sort of dictate it, and, they deal with stuff long enough and then they want to go, and then you're fucked, especially if they're a superstar. I think they got to tweak the second unit. I think they got to increase the scoring. I always talk about like the second unit guys are the most important unit on your team, because when you start taking out your superstars in your first unit, now you have your second unit to really make some, either, dig into a lead that the other team has and a deficit, or increase your own lead. So I think increasing more scoring off the bench would be good for them. Look, I agree with you with Ingles. I think he's the best playmaker on that whole team. No offense to Conley. Conley's a very tough kid. He plays hard, good in pick and roll. But Ingles sort of has better vision Like, he makes easier looks. I think Conley, like, just makes Conley and Donovan Mitchell make good reads. I mean, good, like, just decision making is okay. I think Ingles has got great, just sort of feel for the game as far as, vision and passing. Either players have it or they don't. And I just think Ingles, you're right. I think, especially when you need him to do some things, I think he's very good in pick and roll because he makes great decisions and he's got great vision to see the floor and the spacing. But I think they just have to upgrade some, they definitely got to get better offensively coming off the bench to help with Clarkson. Either it's more shooting. I don't know if a guy, a Lou Williams type could be good there because you got Clarkson. I'm not saying Lou Williams, I'm just saying a type. So I don't know what player they need, but they definitely...
I think a stretch five.
Yeah,
if you can get a Lopez type, someone like that can give him a small ball lineup for 10 minutes, I think it then eliminates what your weakness was in this last series, right? So I think a stretch five, even if Miles Leonard ever got back in the league, wouldn't be a horrible option as a backup if they ever allow that guy to get back in the league. But someone like that, a stretch 7-footer that can still rebound, but also hit a three, that's probably what they're missing off that bench.
Hey, well, just go to 1313 Lawndale Avenue. I'm sure I could help them out. I'm saying Lawndale is going to be a Utah fucking Jazz. So hey, get used to everything shutting down at 7:00, Lawndale. You'll be in Salt Lake, brother.
No, Utah's gotten better. It's all right now. When I was in college, though, it was tough. It was a tough place to find a place to get into, but there was a few places that let old Bogues in with a fake ID. So shout out to those few bars. One of them was Portico, which was on the corner. I don't know if it's still there, but I used to sneak into there until I was sitting at the bar one day watching ESPN highlights of our game I just finished, and it said 20-year-old Andrew Bogut. The waitress turned around and looked at me and was like, 20-year-old? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Hey, maybe Lawndale could use your bike that you got in the accident with.
Oh, man.
Going into that fucking parking lot.
Yeah, that bad boy's gone. That bad boy was crushed. But all right, Clippers. They definitely. I didn't think they get through this series, especially. I thought they had a chance, obviously, to get through. But once Kawhi went down, I thought, well, the Jazz are going to roll with this. Even after the Game 5 loss, I still kind of was feeling the Jazz would win 6 and then wrap it up at home. But credit to them. Reggie Jackson was huge for him. Terrence Mann, game of his life. Hall of Fame performance in Game 6. But we don't know much about Kawhi. I mean, it says ACL sprain. Have you heard anything else about his knee?
No, I haven't heard. I hear what everyone else heard on that. Just sprained knee. He's out for the first couple of games of the conference final. So I don't know. But Terrence fucking Mann, man. It's a great story, especially in my profession and development. It's a great fucking story. This guy went to Portsmouth Invitational. Usually when seniors go to Portsmouth Invitational, it's a tournament that they put on in Portsmouth, Virginia. And, it's for the seniors that are trying to get ready for the draft. Usually, it used to be a big-time tournament where a lot of first-rounders would go. Now, mostly just second-rounders and D-League guys go. So he goes there, gets drafted in the second round because the AU coach that I used to work for in Boston, he plays for an AU team out of Boston where the AU coach is a scout for the scouts for the Los Angeles Clippers. He stands up in a meeting and says, "You got to draft this kid." They draft him. They have a little bit of like upside with the kid, but now he comes in, scores about like 100 points his whole first year or so, and then just stays ready and makes impact not only on this series but also the Dallas series where he just goes in and plays. He's very much like Dorian Finney-Smith to me, where the kid just fucking plays hard. It doesn't matter if he's going against a Hall of Famer or a fucking 18th guy on a roster. He's going to give you his all. And the guy just got hot and he just kept rolling with it. It's a fucking awesome story, and it's a lot like Bruce Brown with Brooklyn. The guy just plays hard as shit, and he just got fucking hot. He got fucking Larry Bird hot. He got fucking Michael Jordan hot. He was very good last game.
Yeah, 15 for 21, 7 for 10 from 3, 2 for 2 from the line. Not much else as far as rebounds and assists, but 39 points in 36 minutes. Got him over the line, so they then move on to Phoenix. It's a series that we can predict now. Game 1 is tomorrow morning Australian time, your evening, but it will be an interesting series. CP3 reportedly out for Game 1 and possibly 2 with COVID protocol. So I assume he caught COVID. And Kawhi, they're being real coy with the messaging. So I've got my suspicions that it could be an injury that he's out for a while, and they just don't want to announce it. But I think the Clips will get ahead here. I think it'll be 4-3 in a 7-game series. I think they're going to get the first couple. I think the CP3 loss for Phoenix is greater than the Kawhi loss for Clippers, if that makes sense, because I think CP is the heart and soul of that team, especially in those playoff games that get bogged down in the half court like we saw with this Brooklyn-Milwaukee game. CP3 is just so good at getting the shot they want in their offense and getting a good one up. Not turning it over, not throwing it to someone where they're shooting some bullshit shot. He gets you a good shot every possession, and they're going to miss that their first couple of games. So I predict the Clippers in this one in a close series. And the other thing I noticed with the Clippers without Kawhi, now you would rather always have Kawhi than not, but it seems like the roles are much more defined now. So it's like, Paul George, you're our guy. Everyone else, Reggie Jackson, we're playing supporting roles, but have to be more aggressive in our supporting role-playing mentality. Batum, Morris Sr., Terrence Mann, Patrick Beverley hit some big shots in that game against Utah. So just an interesting observation that it seems like the role players have stepped up a little bit more now, which they should with Kawhi out.
Yeah, in this league, you always got to stay ready, man. You got to know your role and stay ready. I think when players fight their role and they try to do too much, you just got to sort of get ready. Like one day you might have a role for 20, 30 games, and then an injury or two happens and you got to step into another role. But I agree. When it's very defined where, hey, Paul George is our guy, we're going to roll with him, and then everybody just support him. Zubac does his thing, Batum does his thing, Jackson does his thing, Rondo does his, and everybody just sort of plays around that, and now you have this Terrence Mann factor, where he's going to play a major role in this series, I believe. And it'll be an interesting watch for sure. I think I think and I apologize to the Clippers organization, Clipper Daryl. I think the Clippers will win in 6, and that's a kiss of death when I like you as a team. I apologize, but I got to roll with my pick. I think they'll win in 6. I think they've got experience, they've got players, they got talent, and I think that I think with Chris Paul missing at least a game is going to mess them up a little bit. And then they don't really have the experience. Hey, look, Ayton has done a great job in his development. Bridges, obviously, Booker, what he's doing. But I just think that Jay Crowder, obviously. But I just think that talent, I think the Clippers just have a little bit too much talent for Phoenix. But who knows? Phoenix has home court advantage. Maybe they do to the Clippers what the Clippers did to Utah. They're missing Chris Paul, but Booker goes nuts, and then someone else out of the blue. Maybe Bridges pulls a fucking Terrence Mann and goes for 35. Who knows? But I think the Clippers will win. I think they're more experienced. I think they're going to win in 6, but who the fuck knows?
Yeah, and we continue to not rate Phoenix and doubt them, and they continue to prove us wrong. So I guess if you have to apologize to the Clippers Pro, you could probably tweet all 5 of their fans, so it wouldn't take you too long to apologize to all their fans. But the parade, if they win it, will be interesting in LA to see how many people show up and if they're just at that parade by accident because they're doing something else in LA.
No doubt.
All right, so that's the basketball side of things on court. Now, off court, it's been quite a week. Our run sheet here with news has been absolutely text heavy. First one is the implosion of the Dallas Mavericks, at least from a off the court level. Obviously, Luka Doncic extension hasn't been signed yet. We believe it will be signed. It's $200+ million. Who wouldn't sign that? And even if he isn't unhappy, the betting money says he'll sign it and then look to get out in a year or two. Tim Cato and Sam Amick from The Athletic, where our good friend Sherwood Strauss works. You catch that podcast a couple episodes ago. Started with a story there that was leaked from inside the Dallas Mavericks organization about Haralabos Vulgaris. We're going to call him Bob for spelling and pronunciation purposes. Pro has no chance pronouncing that. He was reportedly outed as a shadow GM type in the organization. I believe his role is, I don't even know what his exact title is, but it's analytic driven and advisor to the GM type role. But
an offensive coordinator, if you've read the article.
Offensive coordinator, there you go. But his voice has gotten louder and louder within the organization as far as worth, and people value his opinion, and Cuban can value whoever opinion he likes. He's the owner. But I think that's rubbed some people the wrong way, and there were issues about him having made calls to other teams about players, about trades, about whatnot. So the GM, Donnie Nelson, has been there 20 plus years. I don't think he liked that too much, calling other teams and hearing that, if that's the case. And I guess a few days after that, Donnie Nelson was fired. So I think we found who the leak was. If I was a betting man, I'd say Donnie Nelson leaked it to the media, and he's probably, from his position was like, I'm not happy with this. I'm the GM. What the hell's going on? Why don't I have a say? Why are we listening to a guy that's not the GM? But on the flip side, Bob is highly valued for his analytical prowess. For those who don't know him, he's a former professional sports bettor, made a shitload of money betting on sports betting, nuances, and he saw, little deficiency. How would you word it? He saw little intricacies within sports betting on the way certain coaches coach games in garbage time, the rotations they made, which he studied it like religion and bet accordingly and made made a shitload of money.
Yeah.
And Mark Cuban's hired him. He's an all-in analytics guy and an absolute guru in that field. Works his nuts off as far as that goes. But so Cuban refuted the leak. Donnie Nelson gets fired. And then a couple of days after that, Rick Carlisle has resigned, which we'll get to a little bit later. But this is what you kind of see in organizations at times. I think Bob is probably a victim in a way of coming in fresh-faced to organization and having probably too much say too early, where a lot of the people that have been there for years are probably like, what the fuck's going on? Why are we listening to this guy when he hasn't been here that long? Why are we listening to this guy when my title is higher on the food chain than his? And that's, whether you think that's right or wrong by that person arguing that's one whole separate issue. But you were around, I was around in Dallas. I think Bob was with the Mavs as an unofficial advisor. It wasn't formally on their roster. I think the year I was there or leaving, he then got signed towards the end of that season when you were there. So how have you seen all that? It's been, for an NBA team to go through first a big leak of these sorts that doesn't look good on your owner and your GM and your coach, then the GM being fired and then the coach resigning all in a matter of days.
Yeah, it's a real busy week for sure. I mean, I don't think anybody knows what's going on. It's everybody's shell-shocked with, the whole week and what happened. But look, with Bob, because Bob's such a character in the sense that no one really knows him. Everybody just sort of, they read the name and they follow him on Twitter and social media and things. And, I was around him for my last year in Dallas, and he was officially with the club for the year and traveled with the team, was around, was in and out. I like Bob. Look, everyone has their sort of thing that they do. Everybody's got their opinions on the game. Bob's you think sports gambler, you think of like Jimmy the Greek, some fucking mafia guy, some 400-pound fucking mafia guy that sits at a fucking casino all day and smokes fucking Marlboros betting on games. It's not like that. He's analytically based. He had an analytics team when he was doing his gambling. He's got an analytics team behind him now, and he's got a big staff that has his model, and his model is one of the best in basketball for what I've heard. And on top of that, what I don't like about stats guys usually is they just go with their model. They never watch the game, and they live and die by their model. Now, he's very confident in his model. I don't really know much about it. We talked a little bit about it. I sort of have an understanding of how he sees the game a little bit. But what I really respected about the guy was we had like a 5-day trip in LA, and we're staying at Staples at LA Live, and that Ritz-Carlton and the Ritz-Carlton and the JW Marriott are sort of combined in the same hotel, and they have that big lobby, restaurant, bar area, lounge. So in 5 days, I probably was in and out of that lobby like 35 times, and probably 90% of the time I saw him crushing film. Watching film on top of his model stuff. Hey, look, I don't know. He might know what he's doing. He might not know what he's doing. But at least the guy not only did his model, but he studied the game as far as film, asked a lot of questions. He could talk hoop. Not the greatest of people person, but he wasn't like a total dick, but he wasn't, not the greatest of people person either. Now, on Donnie's side, I could see why if you're the GM of the team, you helped them win a championship, you drafted 2 of their cornerstone players in franchise history, and you had all this history within the town and the organization, why you get a little pissed at this. Now, Bob's power, well, you could tell he was going to have some power in the future. I was only there 1 year. I don't really know what's going on, except for what I've heard from the people that I know around the league of what's been going on in the last couple of years. But the guy, obviously, you're Johnny Nelson, you're the GM, you run the team, you made all these moves, and you're a big part of the organization. You have a guy that's coming in, You're calling teams on trades. He's calling teams on trades. There is a power struggle, and it could be, and that's just human nature. And that's what people don't understand in these organizations. It's human nature. People are very territorial. The money and power of these titles and these positions are fucking ridiculous. The money they make and the money that's on the line and the power that's on the line. And with Bob's sake, he made all this money, so it may not be money oriented, but it might be power and ego oriented. With Donnie's deal, look, he's been there for all this time, and he probably feels as though he deserves to run the team. So I understand his frustration on it, but it's a power struggle, and just human nature is going to take over, and people are going to get pissed, and you're going to have these arguments. And look, like, that's not really sort of how most organizations are run. Usually you have one person in charge. You've got a bunch of people in on the decision-making process, but you have one person in charge. And when you have multiple voices, people get frustrated. And I think in NBA organizations, there's so much behind the scenes, people undercutting each other because the money is so much. Look, assistant coach back in the day was probably making 15, 20 years ago. Most of them were making the high side, probably $200,000, $250,000, $275,000. Now you're having assistants that make upwards of $1 million. Most of them, the head assistants make $650,000, $700,000. You've got GMs that are making $5 million, $3.5 to $5 million bucks. Some are making 10, most of which are probably making 5 or 6. So if you're like a player development coach making 70, and you want to get in front of the bench and make that 350 or 400 or more, then you're gonna do some you're gonna do some fucking shady shit to get to where you gotta go. And same thing with people in the front office. It's very competitive like that. I'm not saying that that's what happened in Dallas, but it's just very competitive, and it's a nuclear arms race of who's going to get more of the owner's ear in most organizations. The coach, the GM, maybe an outside entity like a Bob. So all these people are chasing that deal to try to get that power to sort of extend their stay, make more money, more extensions. And if it's between you or me, I'm going to push you off the fucking cliff. That's just sort of how it happens. So I could sort of see how this thing gets out of whack. And now, look, you don't have a coach, you don't have a GM, and now you can start clean slate. You got to decide if Bob's going to be part of that or not. Or Bob's got to decide if he wants to be a part of that or not. And then you got to now when you put the GM in charge and then you hire your coach, they got to be on the same page, and you got to communicate that. And I think in most organizations, you got to communicate to everybody on the organization. This is what you do, and I don't want you fucking doing anything else. This is what your role is. This is on the chart, on the org chart of the whole organization. Here's where you sit. Here are the people beneath you that you could fuck with, and the people on top of you who you can't fuck with. And you need to know that on a daily basis. And everybody's got to do their part and stay in their fucking lane. That's the problem in the NBA, Bogues. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but on the coaching and front office side, usually it's the lower level guys. They fucking get out of the box. They don't want to stay in their lane. They're always looking to do someone else's job. They're always looking to move up for the most part. In an organization that's successful, everybody's got to do their fucking job, and everybody's got to stay in their lane. And now as the owner, you give that power to everybody, who has the power and who doesn't. And I think everybody's got to be on the same page. I don't know what happened there in the last couple of years. I wasn't there, and I wasn't in the building. But I think now you have everybody gone. You got to make those decisions going forward, and everybody's going to be on the same page. And now you have another chance to start this thing over. And the most important part of this thing is they're in good shape roster-wise. They've got one of the best players in the league. They got a generational talent in Luka, who's going to definitely sign his $200 million extension. I don't give a fuck what anybody at ESPN says about, he might go here, he might go there. Bullshit. You think he gives a fuck about getting in a little argument with Bob? Or that, somebody got fired, or his coach or his GM's not there? Yeah, he might get pissed. He's human nature. He's a human being. I don't speak for Luka. I'm just saying generally. Most NBA players don't give a fuck about that all that much. As long as he doesn't hate the coach or hate the GM, he doesn't really care who the GM or coach is. And that's a big part of it. And he's going to sign his extension. They're going to hire a coach. They're going to hire a GM. it sucks that they're going through this. I've worked with Donnie and Rick for a long time. Like, those guys were cornerstones of that organization, but they're gone now. And most NBA players, especially superstars, if you give them freedom to do what they need to do on the court, if the organization supports them, if they have a chance to win, and if they get a fat-ass fucking paycheck, they're fine. That's mostly what they care about. Now, some care about winning more than others, but those 4 things are huge factors. They don't care about what kind of weather the city's in. They care about those 4 factors. And like, that's in most NBA players. So their roster's good. They're a move away from getting to the conference finals next year. They've got their best player. They've got all their role players intact. Most of those players like each other. They're going to roll. They just need to hire a coach and a GM and they can go forward. But this whole thing, yeah, it's a shit show in the sense because, it's a power struggle.
And that's exactly what it is. And that's my point.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as you get leaks from within the organization, whether Donnie's right or wrong, number one, you don't leak, in my opinion. That's loose lips sink ships. I think that's a bad thing to do, is to go to a friendly journalist of yours that and leak shit. Just address it directly. But full disclosure, I'm friends with Bob. I know him. I think he's a great guy. I don't think he's in this for the money. So maybe the power thing, you might be right. I don't think he's in it for the money, because he's got more than enough money from Bitcoin and investments that he's made over the years from his sports betting. But I just don't like leaks, period. Like, if I'm in an organization like right now at the Sydney Kings, for instance, and there's someone leaking something, I treat that worse than making a big blunder in anything else, because I feel like you're jeopardizing the integrity of what we're building in the organization. If we can't have these meetings where we might go back and forth, you and I might cuss each other out and almost get to fisticuffs, right? I'd rather that than someone leaking to a newspaper, because once you cross that line, like you said, it just causes so many issues. And for those out there, this happens in every NBA franchise, from the team trainers, the physios, to the masseuses, to the scouts, to the ball boys. It's like, how can I move up and take the guy above me, that role that they're getting paid a little bit more and they got a better role? How do I kind of, when his back's turned, how do I take his role? And then how do I jump up from assistant GM to GM? That's all it is generally about. The organizations that don't tolerate it, there's probably a few in Miami and San Antonio. They'll get you straight out of there if they start feeling all that. And people just don't stay in their lane. And that's just the way it goes. And I'm not saying that's happened in this situation, but it happens a lot out there. And then the repercussions, at the end of the day, everyone's going to end up copping the shit sandwich, because now they're basically on clean slate. And that does lead us on to Rick Carlisle. Basically, I guess he's not a dumb man by any means. He's smart. He's very forward thinking as far as business wise, and he's coaching. He's the head of the coaches union. He's not a silly guy. I think he saw some writing on the wall to get the hell out of there. And I have a hunch that he might have had some inklings that there were some jobs. We joke around about him driving around Brooklyn Arena waiting for Milwaukee to lose that series so he could take over the Milwaukee job. But now we'll talk about Bud a little bit later, but it looks like Bud should hopefully hang on there going into the conference finals. But the Rick Carlisle thing was interesting, because we've spoken about he hasn't been the most successful coach over the last 10 years, bar the championship, which was rumored to be Jason Kidd coaching for the most part. First round exit or worse the last 10 years. There are some job openings. I mean, Indiana's one that comes to mind. Does he make a reunion with Indiana? Milwaukee was the other one. Boston's out there. I don't think he goes to Boston, but he was a former player there. So if you're a smart betting man, he's probably got a half guarantee from someone, bro.
Yeah, I mean, obviously him and I are on each other's Christmas list by any stretch of the imagination, but he did a great job there. He helped win a championship. Didn't really have the team that he needed to win playoff games early on after the championship. No question about it. Like, he had no business winning any of those rounds. He got lucky a little bit in San Antonio where they pushed it to Game 7, but it wasn't like he was favored in any of those series. So it's tough. Last year, Dwight Powell goes down with the Achilles right before the pandemic, and they were rolling. They probably would have been a top 4 or 5 seed that year for sure if that didn't happen, because the way they were playing with him and Porzingis, they played really well together. And then this year they had the COVID deal where they definitely would have been a top 4 seed, probably the 4 seed. And now you're talking about Game 7 in Dallas. Well, in that series, you probably won it in LA, considering they never won any home games needed at LA until the end. But like, they were real close. So, probably the writing was on the wall. I would have said they had a 70% chance of winning their first round next year based on how the team was, put together. I think they probably would. And what other teams in the league are going to do? I think they'll probably definitely win a playoff series next year. But he had 2 years left in his deal. If I had to guess, and this is only a guess, he didn't care about the whole he might get fired thing next year if he didn't make a playoff deal. He didn't care about that. He's got 2 years left. They love him in the town. If he would have done what he was supposed to do, he would get another extension and he's going forward. And that's what most coaches are thinking about. Like, how do I prolong my stay either here or somewhere else? Now, he could if he got fired next year, he would have got any job, like almost any job. He would have got most of the jobs that were out there and he would have had his pick. So he would have been in the same situation this year. My opinion, he probably asked about his future with the team. They probably weren't committing to anything. So they probably decided to go. And now he wants to align himself with a superstar. Look, I know he could go back to Indiana or maybe get the Celtics deal, but Milwaukee, and he's the head of the coach association. He's not going to politic for the job while someone else has a job. I'm saying if there was going to be a decision to be made on Bud, he probably thought that he'd have a really good chance, and they coveted him because they tried to get him out of his contract a couple of times when they had coaching openings in his tenure in Dallas. So he probably thought that he would get the job or have a really good chance of getting the job if they made a change. And then the other jobs, like Indiana or some other jobs, he could probably get if he wanted to. But I think that he probably look, if I'm not going to be long term there and they can't guarantee that, I might as well get out now. Have a chance for this Milwaukee thing.
Portland,
and if not Milwaukee, I can go. Yeah, or Portland as well. He worked in Portland before as an assistant, or in some capacity assistant. I think he might have done some media out there too. So there's that, and then he could do Indiana.
Orlando's out there too, right?
Orlando's out there too, but Boston, I've heard they're going to hire. Yeah, I heard in Boston they're going to hire an African American candidate, a young African American assistant. So Charles Lee from Milwaukee. Jamal Mosley, Dallas, Chauncey Billups. If I heard Chauncey's going to get Portland, but if he doesn't, they'll probably covet him there.
New Orleans is out there as well.
New Orleans is out there as well, but they already had an old school coach, and it didn't work. I don't know if they're going to go 2 years in a row. Maybe they will, but Rick's going to get a job easy. But I think to me, he could have waited another year and still got his, whatever was out there. So to me, if I had to guess, you want to align yourself in Milwaukee, give yourself a chance of coaching a 2-time MVP in a team that's built to get to the finals. At least keep very close to that. And then you do Indiana. If you want a payday, you go to Washington, because they could probably pay you a shitload of money and you get to coach Westbrook and Beal and do what you got to do. But I don't think he's going to leave Dallas, which is, in my opinion, the best city in the NBA to live. With all the great stuff and the organization and the support from fans and things. I don't think he's going to leave Dallas with 2 years left to go to Indiana, to go to Washington, maybe to Boston because there's history there. But I think Milwaukee was the play, maybe even New Orleans because at least there's Zion there. But I think Milwaukee's the play if there was going to be a change.
If he had 2 years guaranteed, he surely got a half promise from someone, right?
Yeah, I would think that he knows information-wise if there's going to be a change, if Bud lost early in the playoffs, that if there was going to be a change, he was going to be the guy. I would guess. I have no information.
Yeah. But it's shit. You're not turning down 2 years of guaranteed money. I'm guessing he was on 7-8 million a year or something like that,
I would think so, yeah, for sure. But he definitely has something else.
Yeah.
And like I said, Washington would want him. Washington definitely would want him. Boston, if that's not true about the African American, it has to be an African American that they hire, or then if he's in play there, the owners would pay whatever he wants to get there. He's one of the better coaches in the league. He had history there. The media would love it. But I think from what I've heard, that it might be that they're leaning in that direction.
Do you think I can get an interview for him for the Sydney Kings job? We've got a couple of $100K floating around, pro.
You probably need his own airplane. Probably, yeah. He probably has a lot of things you need to do. You'd have to rename Lawndale Ave to his name. There's a lot of things you have to do.
We can get a crop duster. Get a crop duster plane and just furnish a few, whatever the wording is, throw some seeds on some crops.
I think you could put your assets in a different direction. I think he's going to have a few more zeros in his bank on his offer.
Do you think he'd take my call in an interview, though? That's a real question.
Possibly, Bogues. Why not? I'm not his agent. Call whoever's representing him. Yeah, for sure. He won't take mine, but he'll take yours.
Let's close out Dallas. So Dirk Nowitzki's been hired to help make decisions upon around the GM and coach hiring. His title is special advisor to Mark Cuban. So a good appointment there, a club legend. We knew he was going to be involved with the Mavs at some capacity. So he's going to be involved there. The other one is, do the Mavs promote a highly touted assistant, Jamal Mosley? Now, I know Jamal Mosley. He played for the Victoria Titans back in the day here when I was a young fella. And I was obviously with Dallas when he was there. He's now the assistant coach also with the Australian Boomers national team. So he's a big candidate to get a head coaching job soon in the NBA. Do you think he has a real chance to maybe take that reign in Dallas?
Oh, I think so too. I definitely think so. Just because he's going to be a head coach somewhere. Like, someone's going to hire him. He's very highly respected around the league as an assistant. He's definitely on the fast track to being a head coach. The question is, how much pressure is there to win next year in the playoffs? And if it's like, hey, look, if Luke is like, if he says, hey, I don't care if we win the playoffs or not, I like this team, I like the city, we're good to go, whatever, then Mose should be your coach. If you need that more experience,
and reportedly close to Luka, reportedly very close to Luka.
Yeah, he's like the closest guy to Luka on that staff in that organization. So I think that that's a huge factor. But if there is pressure, because Luka's not that type, like Luka's not a superstar like most superstars in the NBA that force the organization to hire security, trainers, coach and staff. Like, he doesn't have his boys in the staff. He doesn't do any of that. So he doesn't really care either way. He does care, but he doesn't care. So it's not like if you don't hire Jamal, he's going to leave. I think they need to win. And look, Jamal's going to be a coach. Like, all these guys say, oh, he's not ready to be a head coach yet. Well, how does all these other fucking coaches, how do you think they became head coaches? Somebody just finally said, fuck, he might not be ready right now, but he's close. And he needs a couple years under his belt, but he's going to be fine. I think Jamal will be fine. But I think that I think 3 names would be for this job, and maybe more, but that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking Jamal, I'm thinking Jason Kidd, and I'm thinking Terry Stotts. Terry Stotts is probably the most established guy on the list. People love him in Dallas. The organization loves him. Did a great job as an assistant. He was there under Rick
during the championship year, correct?
Yeah. Yep. He's done a great job as a head coach. Players love him. And I think he'll be really good there. But if there's no pressure to do it, and you have this young coach that you could develop into a championship level coach, why not hire him? And why not just not go through this stuff? I think the relationship with Luka is going to be huge. And I think that, that'll be steady. But I think that if I had to guess, it'll be a more experienced coach that gets the job if I had to gamble on it. But I think Jamal should get the job just because he's there. He's been there so long. And, look, he's going to get a job somewhere. And he has the pieces. See, most assistants got to take a fucked up job, rebuild, in those rebuilds. We talked about that. That's almost a suicide mission.
Orlando so right now.
Yeah, like I said, coaching is irrelevant for the most part in the NBA. If you have talent and the guy at least isn't going to have mutiny on his hands, like in Indiana, if that's not going to happen, anybody can coach these teams that are on staffs. As long as they're not fucking idiots, they're not assholes, and they know what they're doing. Now you've got talent. You got an MVP candidate, and you got all these great people that play there and work there. I would just say, fuck it. Let's roll the dice with the guy. If you have to, hire a more experienced staff under him so he could just sort of, help him. But I think Jamal's going to be a fine coach. I would hire him. But my guess is they'll go a little more experienced, and they'll go with the Terry Stotts. Unless Lucas says, hey, this is what. Now, I guarantee Jason Kidd will be mentioned and go deep, And
well, I mean, he coached him to a finals win 10 years ago, bro. So he might get that job. No? Okay. Let's move on real quick. So Scott Brooks got canned as well. That was no surprise. We won't get too far into that, but he has been fired. The one we got we call it Scott Brooks as well, but the Stan Van Gundy one, I caught wind of that before anyone was even talking about it. He's gone. Tensions were brewing for a long time in that locker room. I think Stevie Wonder could see it wasn't a good fit with a young group. I mean, they didn't have enough veterans in that locker room and enough of those kind of level-headed guys to balance out a crazy coach like Stan. The comments were the former Pelicans coach who prioritized player freedom, offense, and rest, which was Gentry, was a 180-degree difference from the style Van Gundy arrived with. And those differences are largely why Van Gundy was a logical choice to replace Gentry. So it made sense at the time, but it wasn't a pick made without obvious risks, and that was clearly one of them. If things went sideways, how would these young Pelicans react to a gruff, business-like coach who publicly demands accountability? Oh, they haven't reacted well, so he's gone. I am hearing that Zion is the GM of that team, or close to, a lot of pool pro. Also hearing that some people within his inner circle, some family members, are also making very, very big demands on the franchise already. So we saw what happened with Anthony Davis and he left. We know New Orleans don't want 2.0 of that. We know that Zion, teams will already be setting up a 2 or 3 year run for Zion, or even if he signs an extension a la Luka, they can try to get him out 2 or 3 years later. It looks like a messy situation in New Orleans, especially, like you said, Luka's not that guy with Dallas. Well, we're hearing that Zion is that guy in New Orleans.
Look, everybody has to take a step back from your best player. Your best player calls a lot of shots in your organization, either actually calling a shot or just like the pressure of keeping him. You want to try to put him in best position to win. They have all the cards right now because, they like he's a restricted free agent. When he's done with his contract, they'll sign him to his extension. Now he'll probably try to opt out or force his way out if he doesn't like it there. But now you've got legitimately 3 years, unless he just starts doing an Anthony Davis, he sits out of games and things. But you legitimately have about 2 years to really get this thing going. You got a ton of picks in the Anthony Davis trade. You've got Brandon Ingram signed long term, and he's one of the better younger players in the league. You got Steven Adams, who's solid. You got to get spacing. You got to get talent. You got to continue to bring in talent for this kid. I wouldn't just succumb to him right now and say, "Oh, we got to get rid of him because he doesn't want to stay." Look, they change their mind very easily. And you need to just continue to try to put weapons around him to win. The way the team's constructed, it's not perfect. They don't have shooting around the kid. The kid also needs to make some improvements, which he's had in some instances of his game, but he's not a finished product either. So he's not single-handedly winning games. He's single-handedly putting up 27-7, but he's not really has impact on winning yet. So he needs to get better. They need to get better, but they just got to continue to do their job in the front office, continue to put weapons around him, get a coach that's going to, get along with him, get a coach that he's going to relate to and then go forward with. That's the problem now, because now if you're going to hire one of these assistants that may or may not know what they're doing, that team's not built to win right now, like go deep in the playoffs or anything. But you want a coach that's going to really get along with Zion. But you might want to go younger. You might want to get a different type of pool of candidate. But you got a lot of pressure to perform and win. So yeah, it's not an easy deal for sure. I wouldn't get rid of him. I wouldn't press the panic button right now. But you got to do your job, bring in talent.
It's such a tough spot for New Orleans in a small market. We talk about it all the time. I think the player power it's shifted too much towards player power. And when you can now, as a star player, dictate every move an organization makes and then still potentially leave, and the team's left holding a bag of bad contracts that you wanted because we thought if we signed these guys or this coach or this GM because you demanded it that you were going to leave, and then it doesn't work out and you still don't win games and you leave anyway, you're Cleveland 2.0, right? You're stuck with a bunch of bad contracts and you're in a full rebuild that's going to take 2 or 3 years longer than it should. And I'm kind of seeing that with New Orleans right now. I think that they're in that tough position of, like you said, if you give up to one demand of a star player, you're going to eventually give them the keys to the house, right? On the flip side, if you say no to everything, they're going to leave and then say that organization is terrible for stars. They didn't treat me right. I think it's a lose-lose situation for these small markets, man. I really do. And you feel bad for them. That's why I respect what Giannis did so much, staying on there and signing that extension when he could have went to a bigger and better, brighter lights. He stayed in a smaller organization, and now they're in a conference finals. But I'm not getting a good feel. Don't get me wrong. I think Stan Van Gundy was a horrible hiring by them. I don't get that one. I never got it the day it was announced. I was scratching my head. I'm like, this is not going to work, and it didn't. So I pat myself on the back for that. But I think you just got to be so careful with how you handle that. And like you said, there's no right way or wrong way these days, because if things go bad, the player's going to leave regardless. So you got to just try.
And
your
that's
best.
the thing.
Yeah.
Hey, look, you gotta look. You can't be an asshole to the player. You got to communicate with them. You got to talk to them. Don't lie to them. Most of these fucking teams lie to their player anyway, and do this. Oh, you're gonna be in on it. Just say, look, we're going to talk to you about it for sure. But that GM, that owner, whoever's calling the shot, they have to do what's best for the organization. Say, look, we're not going to shut you out of this thing, but we're going to do our best to put the best players around you, best coach around you, best medical team around you to keep you healthy, and go forward with this thing. But I can't have you dictate what we're going to do, because I'll be honest, we don't know if you want to stay here long term. So you're going to demand this player, that player, this player, and if it doesn't work and you've gone, we're holding the bag. Look, let us do our job. We'll give you everything that you need to be successful. And at the end, if you feel as though you need to leave, we'll do that. But let us do our job. That's why these teams like Cleveland, who gave in, and some of these people who gave in to these agents and these players, I get what you need to do. But at the end of the day, as a GM, when you get fired from this, you got to explain what the fuck you did to the next guy that you're trying to get a job with. So you might as well go out on your own terms. Not being an asshole to the player, though. There's a way to do it without being an asshole to the player. Be honest with the player. Say, look, you can't micromanage what we're going to do. We're not going to micromanage what you do. We're going to put the best weapons around. Let us do our job. And I guarantee you, we're going to do the best we can. And we'll come back to this. And if you feel as though it's not right, we'll move you. Believe me, they'll get a shitload of assets back for Zion if that's the case. But these teams who just give in to these players, that's why I love the Miami Heat when those guys tried to get Spoelstra fired and Pat Riley was like, fuck off. He's the coach. I run this team. You guys don't. That's the way you got, maybe not in that light. That's Pat fucking Riley. But you got to do that. You got to have balls and say, you know what? Not today. We're not doing this shit.
It just needs to be balanced.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. I think it's gone. At one point, it was too far organizational power. Now it's players. I think it's just gone too far that way, where you can, as a player, manipulate things. And that's just where the league is. But we'll move on to the Celtics. So an unusual time, Pro, for a trade to go down. You don't usually see them at this time of the year. The Celtics traded Kemba Walker, 2023 second-round pick, and Moses Brown for Al Horford, 16th pick in the 2021 draft, 2025 second-round draft pick. Pretty good salary shed by the Celtics. They've been, trying to save a little bit of money. I think it adds up to saving around 10 a year. On the differences between Kemba and Horford, and they know Horford's a consummate pro. Whether he plays a lot or not for the Celtics, who knows, but a valuable guy to have in that locker room as far as a professional and a veteran. And, look, OKC with a young rebuilding team, they get a guy that if he can refine that form in Charlotte, they could all of a sudden be scratching a playoff spot, a 7, 8, 9, 10 seed with a playing game.
Yeah, I mean, for Boston, look, for one reason or another, it didn't work with Kemba, and it's a lot of money, and they're trying to get to a max slot as quickly as they can. This trade, because of the difference in salary this year, and then also with the partial guarantee in future years of the deal. I think it's partially guaranteed on the last year, or it's just less money. I forgot, but it allows them to open up a max spot. Now the problem is when you sign the wrong guy. Well, when it doesn't work out and you sign them for that much money, you're going to have to end up paying to get off of it. And you pay with your first round pick this year. But you get that max spot. You got Brown and Tatum. You got Marcus Smart. You got Williams on the team. You got some guys going forward that are fine. But now you have to pay for a draft pick, one of your picks to get off this deal. For Oklahoma City, look, they just need to get to that salary threshold. They can continue to trade these bad contracts. They got Horford first. They got off they got picks for that. Then they get off Horford. They get Kemba, and then they get the pick. That's all they're doing. They just want to acquire picks. They just want to get to the salary threshold. They could use Kemba a little bit. Obviously they're going to put everything in Alexander, and they're going to put everything in Alexei Pokusevski. Yeah, good try trying to fucking pronounce that name. So they're trying to they're just trying to get picks, and what they've been doing that's great is they keep acquiring these players that you think that untradeable, like Chris Paul, like Al Horford, and they keep moving them, and they get more. So not only did they get picks for Al to acquire him, then they ship them out, and they get more picks a pick for him. I've never seen anything like it. It's unbelievable. So it's that's what they're doing. They're just acquiring all these picks. They got Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. They're trying to develop. He was doing a hell of a job, and they get the foreign kid Alexei, and that's what they're trying to do. And for the Celtics, look, it's less firepower now. They don't have Kemba in the lineup. That's 19 points a game out the door. Al Horford's going to be used just a little bit. He's having very little impact in the game. They got Moses Brown now, which they got Williams, and as their starting center. And now they got sort of the same type of player, Moses Brown, playing. So they don't get a lot in this deal. And then Oklahoma City gets a first-round pick. But it opens up a max slot in a couple of years. So it's one of those deals that there's really not much getting done here. It saves a little money for Boston. He gives Oklahoma City a pick, and to see if they could move Kemba in a later date for something else. So it's interesting.
Yeah, Al Horford's 35. I don't think he gives them a lot on court, but I think he could be, if he has half his form back, he could help on that roster for 20 minutes a night with Tatum and Brown. So we'll see how that goes. But mainly a salary relief for Boston, and then acquiring picks for OKC is how we both see that one. LeBron has come out and killed the schedule, pro. Shocker. The Lakers aren't playing right now, so something must be wrong. Comments: they all didn't want to listen to me about the start of the season. I knew exactly what would happen. I only wanted to protect the well-being of the players, which ultimately is the product and benefit of our game. These injuries isn't just part of the game. It's the lack of pure rim test. You heard that correctly. Rim, as in a basketball rim test. It is. It's actually called REM sleep. Rapid eye movement. Anyway, starting back up, 8, possibly 9 All-Stars, has missed playoff games, most in league history. This is the best time of year for our league and our fans, missing a ton of our favorite players. It's insane. If there's one person that know about the body and how it works all year round, it's me. I speak for the health of all our players, and I hate to see this many injuries this time of year. Sorry, fans. Wish you guys were all seeing your favorite guys right now. He has a point about the injuries. To an extent, look, there are a lot of injuries, but the players' union voted for this. At the end of the day, this is all has to be approved by the players' union, and I assume this is going to be similar to the lockout year when we had those nights where there were 3 games in a row instead of back-to-backs. It was triple headers with travel. That was also agreed upon by players because they said, "Hey, if you play 71 games, you get 85% of your contract. If you play 60, you get 60%." So, what do you think the players voted for? This is very, very similar. So I think he's crying over spilt milk a little bit because he's not involved. Mike Bass from the NBA has given a statement saying injury rates were virtually the same this season as they were in the 1920, while starter level and all-star players missed games due to injury at similar rates as the last 3 seasons. While injuries are an uncomfortable reality of our game, we recognize the enormous sacrifices NBA players and teams have to make to play through this pandemic. So what do you think about LeBron? Just spilt milk, pro?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hear him crying about it. I didn't hear him complaining about it all that much throughout the year. Yeah, he did a little maybe. But look, he's got all this power. He's might be the most influential athlete of all time. Just because of social media presence and all that stuff. And then people in the league. Why not? If they didn't like it, first of all, why'd you agree to it? We know why you agreed to it, because of the money. It's a money train. Everybody gets paid. They had the Olympics they're playing against, so they're trying to finish before the Olympics. And then also they're trying to stop the next season on time to get this season back on swing. And that's what they needed to do. But if he really felt as though that this needed to happen, I would have sat out until you came to my demands. I would have sat out. And I would have told players to sit out. If that was the case, like,
Exactly.
and he has
That
this
was
much
never gonna
power,
happen.
if he really, you know what I'm saying? And that's not going to happen. Let's be honest. Everybody needs to get paid. Everybody needs to get paid. And again, the teams are the ones that's getting their fucking brains beat in. Because the player, there's no risk. You get your money, and you get your money. Whatever money you get, you get.
And you can
With
rest.
Teams,
You can rest during the regular season.
and you could rest. You rest during the regular season. You've got, you got all this stuff. And most of these guys who got hurt, either freakish injury like a Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis got hurt. Well, he's always hurt. Kawhi always hurt anyway. He's got an injury history. Oh, Embiid, injury history. So yes, I agree. The schedule fucked him up a little bit. But if you really felt as though it was that important, health over money, you wouldn't have agreed, and you would have played less games, and or said we're not doing the Olympics this year and played through the Olympics. But there's just too much money at stake.
100%. Yeah, and it comes down to, there's so many different perspectives as well when players are voting for this. So it could be a player in the last year of their career. They're like, I'm going to play one more year and I retire. I'll play however many games at all costs. Then you got second round picks who are making not much money. Like, shit, I need to play those 80 games. I'll play whatever I need to play. So generally 99.999 times out of 100, or whatever the number is, I'm not great at math, but you're going to have players always take, we'll play more games to get more money. They're never going to take less money to play less games. If the NBA would have said, hey, all of these experts, we've hired some health experts, some sleep experts, some physiotherapists, they've all said a good number for this season is 42 games. You guys will be perfectly healthy and won't have any injuries, but you lose 50% of your contract. No fucking chance. Like, let's call a spade a spade. I probably wouldn't vote for that, right? So you can get every expert in the world trying to help it comes down to money, and that's all it was at the end of the day. So I think LeBron, his team's not there as well. I think that plays a part. By the way, you would have seen Brooklyn fans counting during Giannis's free throws?
I saw that.
The week before, what I forgot to mention on the pod, the week before, the Brooklyn Arena actually had a countdown on the scoreboard. Right, so once Giannis caught the ball, there was a counter going from 10, and the league actually stepped in and said they're not allowed to do it, which was I found that very interesting. Why they would? It's not really against the rules, but to be
honest, they should do it. They should do it. They should do it every game, like for every team. That would be pretty cool to have.
Hilarious, yeah. But the league said you can't run that on the league, like equipment, scoreboard or whatever. So that's why I thought Brooklyn fans actually counting it was the ultimate troll, because it was like, fuck you, we're still going to do it. You can't stop the fan. You can't get 20,000 fans and be like, hey guys, they're going to fine us. You can't count when Giannis is counting, because he does toe the line on the time frame. He gets to 11 seconds sometimes, but it's a ballsy referee to call it, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt
that
about
was just an interesting observation with that one. Have you seen the latest on NBA's competition committee meeting about rule changes? So the league wants to limit the ability of players, names that were mentioned, crafty stars like James Harden, Luka Doncic, Trae Young, to lean backward and sideways, for example, to initiate contact to get to the free throw line. The NBA has shared a video compilation of player examples with 30 teams that outlines a number of motions deemed unnatural that were used to draw fouls. The NBA and the competition committee will drill down on specific plays of the league's GMs next week to target examples that will recommend owners to vote to eliminate next season, sources said. I think it's a good thing. I think this rule is needed. There's playing for fouls, but the rip through to me is an interesting one. So if I'm in a legal guarding position, but I'm in my space, even with my hand out, right? If someone swings through to actually hit my arm, I disagree with that being a foul on the defender, because I'm in my space, however I want to stand. If I'm in that space first with my arms out, so be it. If you're reaching, that's a whole different story. But I hate the rip through where you're initiating the contact to hit someone's arm. I don't think it should be a foul. I really don't. I think, it slows the game down. It becomes real theatrical where it's just, I don't blame the players, first and foremost. It's just the rules of the game. The NBA needs to change this, in my opinion. I hate it. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I hate it too. It just slows the game down. It's, at some point, you got to give the defender some chance to react to this stuff. And, when you're initiating, I don't mind initiating contact to get to the free throw line on a drive or something, but the 3-point thing is very, look, I understand that the player's smart by trying to do it, the offensive player, but it sort of takes some of the fun out of the game. You know what I'm saying? When
Yeah.
they're trying to force that foul and they call it. I agree. That's why I like the competition committee. They're always trying to, change things up and try to make the game a little bit better. And I think I agree with this. I think that it should be something that's done.
Well, in FIBA Pro, the leg, if you kick your leg out and kick a defender, it can be called a flagrant on the guy that kicked the actual shooter. It can be called an intentional foul.
I love that.
Yeah, and I think that's great. Like I didn't even know it was a rule, right? So Patty Mills did it in 2019, the World Cup. He got a warning for it, and I was like, "What the hell are they warning you for?" And he said leg kick, and I was like, "Wow, that's actually good." And we played against a team that had, I think it was Dominican Republic, maybe, but there was a team that had a few notorious floppers that were doing it. They teed a guy up for it. They gave him an intentional foul. It cut it out straight away. They stopped doing it, and I think you just hate to see it. And it's not the player's fault; it's the rules of the game. I think change it. I think the other one that I hate is if a guy's backing you down and you've got an armbar on him and then he just quickly turns and just rips through that armbar. It's just like, it's a tough watch for me because it becomes theatrics. The more, they did studies many years ago with the Hacker Shack stuff that when there was that game where Dwight Howard shot, I think it was Mark Jackson actually that did it, Golden State Warriors, shot 48 or 53 throws one game, and they noticed a trend in viewers changing the channel, like just stop watching the game because they were like, fuck this, like I'm not watching this shit. I'm watching Dwight Howard shoot 24 free throws in a half. So I think they need to be across that and keep the game flowing. And I like that from the competition committee. Another one, I don't know if you saw, but Jokic, after his great season, has pulled out of national team duties for the Serbian national team in their Olympic campaign. Now, I don't know if you know much about the Balkans Pro, but they would be killing him right now, MVP or not. They would be pulling the whole, oh, you think you're MVP now? You're too good for our country. Fuck you. So the Serbians are passionate about playing for the national team. Unless you're, basically in a car accident type injury, you're expected to play. So I am guessing that Serbia might be out of the question for a holiday destination for Jokic in the next couple of months.
Yeah, man. I mean, some of those nations really take their national team very, very serious, and and that they live and die by it, right? And he probably saying that, look, I need a rest, and
which he does. He does. I think he does need a rest. He's had a great year, but man, there's some passionate fans. I've had friends of mine that played for Croatian and Serbian national teams that, for whatever reason, didn't play in an off season and got that people spat on them when they were out and about in cafes and restaurants. So if they were in that country at the time and the team was, at an Olympics, they're kind of like, why aren't you at the Olympics, dude? Like, oh, because you're in the NBA and you're making, $50 million. And
yeah,
I've had people that were literally spat on, and like, so they were like, if I don't play a national team, I'm not going home for that year. Like, it's a whole different world over there.
I agree. Like, I mean, I understand it. I understand, especially in European countries and the international. Like, look, there's a lot of pride in the United States playing for your team and all that. I get it. Most of those guys, obviously, those guys are NBA players, so some of them can say no. They got all that money, and I don't think many fans will care if they play or not, to be honest with you, because they just want to win. And you got so many NBA players they could choose from that you're most likely you're going to win or do very well in the Olympics if you have the top 5 players playing, or you have most of them in the top 20. But for these other countries, they take it a lot more serious. There's a lot more at stake. There's a lot more pride in playing for your team. And I don't know, it's a little bit different. So I think the players have a different attitude towards it. Most want to play. I mean, I think most, to tell you the truth, I think in some eras, some international players would rather win a gold medal or a World Cup than win an NBA championship and play for an NBA team. I really do believe that. And some of the international players that played in the game, they have more pride to play for their country in international competition than actually win an NBA championship.
Yeah.
But I think it's changed now. But yeah, it's interesting, man. I wouldn't be going back if I was him. But he's got his brother. His brother could definitely protect him.
I saw that clip of his brothers, and they are the real deal. That's not acting. For those that didn't see the clip, you can go on YouTube. His brothers, when Jokic hard fouled the campaign, and Devin Booker and that all got into it. Their brothers were yelling in Serbian, which I can't repeat on air. Well, actually, I could, considering you swear all the time. But they are the real deal. They will go to war. One of his older brothers played in the Serbian league, was notorious for starting fights. But yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting one. He would be the main guy for their national team, but they still have a very, very strong squad. Serbia, they always churn out really good competitive teams. And I think a lot of guys do play for their national team in those European countries because they're scared not to play, if that makes sense. There is the pride factor of winning a medal for your country, but there's also like, I want to be able to like go back to my home country in the off season without being abused and taunted. One other bit of international news, Pro, which is great for the NBL, the CBA, the Chinese league, Chinese basketball league, there's rumors that the next season will likely be played without foreign players, according to local journalist Jaya Lee. The decision of CBA shareholders has been submitted to the General Administration of Sports for approval. So no international, no foreigners basically is a great sign for other leagues in the world. So I'm excited by that for the NBL, Pro.
Yeah, it's just more players in your player pool that you can get and
at a cheaper rate.
I mean, it's a lot
because China usually inflate those prices. Man, they're paying guys $3, $4, $5 million. Like, we've got no chance, and now they might come back down to earth and come play in the NBL.
Yeah, play for a few $100,000. No, I think it's great. I'm wondering what the reasening was. Was it a political thing, or was it money? Was it COVID? I wonder what
China,
the
bro.
sort
Who
of
knows with China. Their president, prime minister, probably woke up one day and didn't have fun with his wife the night before and just probably put a rule on the CBA. That's how shit works over there. Like, there's no rhyme or reason to how they do things. But yeah, it's just an interesting random thing to do at this point. Maybe COVID related, but from what I hear from friends that played in China, China's pretty much has been back to normal for the good part of 12 months. Although we get reports in the media to the contrary. Some people I know that live over there said, like, the coronavirus doesn't exist over here anymore. So we'll watch that space. NBL's in its grand final series, Pro. We have Melbourne United play tonight. At the time of recording, they play in about 3 hours. They're currently up 1-0 against the Perth Wildcats. The series had to move to, it was a 5-game series. Melbourne United had home court advantage. It's usually done 1-1-1-1-1. The problem being Melbourne, or the state of Victoria, was in lockdown, so Perth actually got home court. They decided to do the first 2 games in Perth, last 3 in Melbourne, which strategically has worked out well because now Victoria is going to open up in a couple of days to be able to play sports again. United are up 1-0. I do not think Perth win a game, Pro. They have been absolutely smacked with injuries. Bryce Cotton's obviously out for the series, but they still had a chance to battle, and they've lost a few more players along the way, a few of their scoring players. But credit to them, they lost by 3 game 1. I didn't think they'd be, in the series at all. And they're one of those grinded out battle San Antonio type teams of the NBL that always just find a way. But I think this is going to be a 3-0 sweep, Pro. He's going to bring it home. He'll probably be looking like he's playing, like the MVP of that team the last couple of games. I mean, they start and end with him. When he plays well, they win. But even, look, to be honest, you could remove Lawndale right now, or Landale, and I still think they have a chance to win that series. I think Perth's just so depleted. They just don't have, enough cattle to compete. If they even manage to I picked them to lose 3-1. I think pick United 3-1, and now I've changed it to 3-0 because one of their other scorers, Clint Steindl, got hurt. But if they get a game, I think that's phenomenal for them. So one final thing out of Perth or Western Australia, an absolutely dismal government decision. The under-16 Nationals Pro, that's kind of the best tournament for that age group in Australia. I think AAU. So in Australia, you play for your local team. If you're really good for that local team, you then play and represent that local area against other local areas in your state. Then if you're really good there, you'd represent your whole state at a national championships against other states. So the national championships for under-16s was in Western Australia. There were some issues because there's a lockdown in Victoria now, so other states close their borders here in Australia because the politicians are just on crack cocaine on a daily basis, I assume. Don't know what the hell they're doing, but they'll close borders if there's one case in a different state. Anyway, this team has fundraised money. They found a suitable hotel to quarantine in upon arrival. They have to quarantine for 14 days. So they found kind of like a motel setup where they booked out the whole motel. They'd be the only people staying there would be their team. They were behind in fundraising, but they ended up getting to raise it. I think Delvedova contributed, a few other guys contributed. And then literally a day before, the government said, actually, we're not granting you a permit anymore. We're not letting you come over because the facility you're booking into has shared bathroom facilities. Not everyone has their own bathroom. But it's the same group of people that are staying there, so it makes no difference. But anyhow, they said, we'll allow you to come in, but you have to go to a proper hotel quarantine facility, so like a Marriott or a Hilton. That he said that would have cost them another $250,000 for a junior, for young kids. So basically, they had to pull the plug. So there's a national championship going on without the state of Victoria, which historically Victoria's the top 3 states at every tournament, and these poor kids now are just being pulled out on the last minute because of government bureaucracy, pro. And we're seeing it more and more over here in Australia. Like, we shut down at 1 or 2 cases, and the people, like, adults is one thing, junior sports, local sports, they're just getting pushed and pulled all over the place. They're closing schools every other week, then opening them back up. And a lot of kids, at least that I know from family members, nephews, cousins, nieces, they're struggling mentally from it, pro, and it's just hard to talk about it because I'm highly disappointed in our government. Whether over there in the States it's Republican and Democrat, over here it's Liberal and Labor. I think they're all useless to me. I mean, we need to start to really try to protect our kids' mental health.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate, man. I mean, with these kids and what they're going through and all this stuff, man, it's just tough. It's tough on the kids, and you got to think about it like, as adults, it's hard enough to deal with it when you're an adult. Imagine when you're a kid, dealing with this. You don't have the maturity and the experience in life to deal with adversity like this. It's a tough deal, man, on all levels. So yeah, it's unfortunate, man.
Does kids sport open up there in Dallas?
Yeah, there's AU tournaments going on all the time.
But everything's full blown now there. And
everything's open. Yeah,
schools.
People are still wearing masks a little bit. Yeah, but teams, tournaments. There's a lot of AU tournaments in the town. There's a lot of like national stuff that's already been done in the last couple of months, in the last month or so. So yeah, they're fully opened up for the most part. Yeah,
we're not here. We're kind of, like I said, 2 or 3 cases spring up and they shut a state. And look, I understand that there's issues with the virus still. And my whole thing is, how long can you live like this, and the mental health of kids and their well-being, even adults to an extent, not being able to work and whatnot. But it's more the hypocrisy of some of the rules that just don't make sense. That you can have full stadiums one day and then the next day you can't. And then some businesses can open if they're backed by a union, and then some can't. So that's where the frustration lies for the everyday people, I believe. And we're starting to see a bit more people speak out against it. And hopefully, the problem is there's election time for most states around this virus stuff, and they're they can sell a lot of people that they're protecting them from life or death at times where certain things like wearing a mask outside when you're by yourself walking around a park with no one in near sight of you, not just doesn't make sense to me. Indoor area, crowded, I get it, but then when you start implementing that for other things. But story for another day, pro. Good to see Texas has got over it, because we haven't. A bit jealous.
Well, hey, anytime you want to come by, we got an extra bedroom upstairs.
We can't get out of the country, mate. That's the other problem. We're not allowed to leave. We have to get a permit from our government to even leave the country, and they can deny it, which they're doing a lot. And then to come back, we have to quarantine for 14 days still. So I'm staying my ass.
You got to get one of those. You got to get one of those drug cartel submarines and just go in and just escape.
Oh, it's just ridiculous. Like, I'm not leaving the country. I'm supposed to go to Utah. Got elected to be in the Hall of Fame for the University of Utah, and the inductions in September. I don't think I can get there. Ooh. I don't think I can get out of the country, mate. So no good. Story for another day. Anyway, useful or useless stats, pro. We have a few doozies here. Start on a lighter note. Kevin Durant's game 6, I believe, or game 5, sorry. Kevin Durant is the first player in NBA postseason history with 45 points, 15 rebounds, and 10 assists in a game, per ESPN Stats and Info. Good one?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good one. That's a fucking pretty, if he's the only player to do it, he put legit stats up, and it's not just some fucking, random thing. Yeah, I think that's definitely legit. What do you think?
So I think it's they mean a triple-double with probably 45 points, I'm guessing, is what it means. But yeah, I mean, the dude's, like I said many pods ago, there was a couple of times when I was in Golden State where he just felt like playing point guard, didn't want to score some nights and just tried to get triple doubles and was kind of half coasting and still did it with ease. And you're just like, man, this guy's just just so talented, can go at half speed during a regular season game in Memphis and still dominate the game. So very impressive. The next one, Ben Simmons, is just 22 for 67, 32.8% from the line this postseason. That's on pace to be the second worst in single postseason NBA history, a minimum of 53 throw attempts. The worst non-center has shot from the line in a postseason is by my guy, Andre Iguodala, 41.5% for the 2015 Golden State Warriors. Useful?
Yeah, I think it's useful. I think it's useful to, for me, if I was working with the kid, it would be definitely useful to show him and say, look, this is some real shit, especially in the playoff time. This is coming up. I think it's useful. What do you think?
Well, I think, it's an elephant in the room we spoke about earlier. Teams can manipulate it and hack him. And I think, like I said, if you can just go 1 for 2 and then every now and then go 2 for 2, they'll stop doing it. But if you go to the line when they're doing it and you're 0 for 2 and you look like you don't want to be there, even if he's not so much from the free throw point of view, if it then stymies his aggressiveness, that's where the ultimate chess move is made by some of these coaches. Is like, we're going to stop you from being aggressive in open floor transition because we're just going to foul you. And then that's a whole other layer of why you got to knock them down. The last one, now, Jaylen Brown had some analytics for us, pro. 7 NBA teams.
Oh, nice.
Remaining, 4 are led by African American coaches.
It's a hell of an observation, man. I don't know what what NASA scientist he got this information from, but yeah, he's very observant. I think it's completely useless. I think that there are a lot of good coaches in this league: black, white, Latino, Asian American. Look, there's a lot of good
human
coaches.
Beings. Yeah, how about human beings?
Yeah,
I'm not.
Because we don't want to go down that road. We don't want to go down that road. Like, we don't want to go down the road of, well, black coaches are better than white coaches. It's a non-starter for me. When I saw it at first, I was like, what the and then I was like, you know what? Non-starter for me. Because you never want to go down that road of like, who's more valuable and why. It's so stupid. There are a lot of good coaches in this league, and, Monty Williams and Doc Rivers and Nate McMillan, Ty Lue. Yeah, look, they're good coaches in the league. That's great. But like, once you start saying stuff like that, and then you just don't want to go down the road. I think it's a useless stat. I know what he was trying to do. I get it. Look, the league's doing the best he can to sort of, to try to, to push as many different people as possible into these head coaching positions and these GM positions. But by you just saying that, to me, it just riles people up. It gets people like, you're just poking the bear there on both sides of this thing. It's just, to me, it's useless, folks. What do you think?
Well, I'm so old school and primitive and a hick or a yobbo that when I interview someone for any of my job roles, I don't look at their appearance, what they have between their legs or what color their skin is. Now, call me a bigot, pro. I apologize for it, but I generally will look at how they can help either my players, my organization, my business. I don't care about all other shit. I don't care what you look like. I don't care what you do on weekends. I don't care who you're dating, what your passions are, what your passions aren't, what your political views are. Don't give a shit. If you're going to help me, help my team, our team, my business, whatever I'm doing, you're hired. Simple as that. Now that's old school these days, bro. That's very controversial to say. I actually make no apologies for being controversial, but I can never look at skin color, religion, race, creed, any of that shit when it comes to hiring someone, being friends with someone, talking to someone. It's just not something that I think about. I think a good person is a good person to me. And all that other shit, like you said, it's a little of a passive-aggressive tweet by him, and I get why he's saying it with everything going on, but it kind of ruins your whole course because Jaylen Brown's pretty big in the social justice stuff, which he has every right to do, but I think it diminishes all the work that he's done by putting something out there like that.
Yeah, and then some idiot's going to think this. He's like, what, you don't want to play for a white coach? You don't like Coach Stevens because he was white? Even though that's not the case. It's definitely not the case. Well, at least I would think it's not the case. But then, like, you start going down this path and people are going to start calling you out for things like that. And it's not true. I get what he's saying. He wants as much equality in the league as possible. He wants as many African American and people of other races coaching teams. I get it. But once you start saying things like that, you start putting yourself out there for the wrong reasons. And I don't know, man. Maybe it's because it's 4:30 in the fucking morning and we've already recorded this thing 3 times. Because you're on, But I don't know. But it just, But that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm 46 fucking years old. You know what I sort of backed up after like being a little bit agitated by the comment, and then I'm like, you know what, non-starter. I know where he's coming from. It's not smart, in my opinion. And you just move on from there. And that's it. I don't give a fuck.
I think there's a
that's how he thinks.
I think equality of opportunity is at all-time high in the NBA. Equality outcome should never be something that's a mantra for anyone. You give everyone the equal opportunity. The outcome is determined by the best candidate, the best person for the job. Okay, you got some fact or fake news for us, bro?
Sure. Major changes will be made in Utah based on the latest playoff collapse.
Fake news. I think they give it one more year with coaching and the squad. There'll be some tweaks, but by major, I think we'll see a very similar starting lineup. Some tweaks on the bench obviously need to be made. Coach will still be there, so I think fake news for next season. You?
I've heard some rumblings about issues between management and coach.
Oh, wow.
And
exclusive.
Yeah, and I don't think that I don't think Utah is going anywhere. So maybe a shakeup in the front office. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, it is a new owner. It is a new owner, so he might want to have his paw prints on the club with what he feels is right initially. You just never know. You know how it is with new owners when they get that first couple of years in. Like you said, whoever gets his ear first might win that lottery ticket.
But I'll tell you what, though. Like, look, Quinn's done a hell of a job for that team as a coach. Very good. The GM, Dennis Lindsay, has put together a hell of a team. Now look, Gobert, nobody wanted to draft Gobert his first year. Everybody thought he was soft. They didn't think he was tough. They didn't think he was going to last in the league. They take a chance on him. Donovan Mitchell, everybody loved him in his workout. But again, it's a little bit of a second thought on lottery teams and things like that. They take a flyer on him, and that happened. Then they do all these other things like acquiring Mike Conley. They got Royce O'Neal. They got Conley. They brought in Clarkson. They've done a good job with salaries. They've done a good job putting that team together. They got a good coach, a good GM. This is where this shit gets everybody fucked up for no reason. Like, the GM just do your fucking job. The head coach just do your fucking job. And everybody's good. But, like, again, I don't know why there is a rift. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's not true. Maybe it's not true. But I've heard from a couple of people that there is a rift and there might be a change. And the owner's got to make a decision. And I don't think he's going to make it. I don't think he's going to do anything with Quinn Snyder, is what I'm saying. So, I don't know. But I don't think there'll be a major change on their roster. I think they got to make a decision on Mike Conley, if I'm not mistaken. But I think they could re-sign him for short money and maybe shore up that second unit. But I don't think there's going to be a major change. All right. So the NBA will have its first female head coach in 2021.
Oh, wow!
Fact or fake news?
That's a tough one. Man, there's a lot of openings, and there is a lot of people beating that drum about why it hasn't happened yet. It should happen. We hear Becky Hammond being thrown in there, and Weatherspoon was even thrown in there with the New Orleans job. So 2021, I'm going to go fake news, but I will put a caveat in and say we'll see it in the next couple of years. But for 2021, I'm going to fake news it.
Yeah, I would say fake news too, for the reason most of these teams that have openings, you need to win. And hiring somebody with no head coaching experience in general is going to be tough. Okay, so you go to Boston. Now, Boston's a tough one because you would think that they would want somebody to take those young players deeper into the playoffs than they've had, but I guess they're going to go with an assistant from what I've heard. So they're going to go with, like Charles Lee, Jamal Mosley, Udoka, or Chauncey. But New Orleans is in a tough spot because they got to win. They got to go great with Zion. Are you going to take a chance at hiring the first woman in NBA history to coach your team when not knowing if she's going to be good at her job right away and then risk losing Zion? The one team that comes to mind that might do it would be I would think that Orlando Magic might have a chance at hiring a woman. They're a young team. There's not a lot of like expectation on playoffs and things like that. So you could develop a coach. Matt Bonner's sister, I think her name's Becky Bonner, if I'm not mistaken, is deep into their front office in the Orlando Magic. And I know she'll be an advocate for a female coach as well. Now, will they do it? Probably not. I've heard Jamal Mosley, I've heard Penny Hardaway, I've heard Udoka, Charles Lee. That they're trying to get in on Chauncey. Maybe they hire a veteran coach. Maybe they hire Stotts, I don't think Stotts, but maybe they hire someone like that. But I don't think so. I think at the end of the day, these teams won't, because again, a lot of them, they can't take a chance. Like Indiana can't take a chance again on an assistant. Like they got to hire, like a Steve Clifford, D'Antoni, Carlisle, someone like that. I don't think they're going to go with an assistant or a woman, in my opinion, and take the chance on developing when everybody's sort of like on the hot seat on a lot of these places. I just don't see it. But I'll tell you what, that the team that does it will have about 3 years of unbelievable press, and that's good. I mean, that's sort of, but that's the truth, though. And that's
Can't
the truth.
do no wrong.
Where what?
Yeah, you won't be able to do no wrong for the first couple of years, that's for sure, even if you go 0-82.
And you're the first team. And that's a big thing in today's society, being the first. Look, we got stats all the time, being the first one. These owners, it's unbelievable press for them. And imagine if, like, not only do they hire a woman, but she's successful right away. I mean, then they can never do any wrong. Like, you've got, going forward, it's unbelievable for you. So let's not go into that. I just think it's fake news. I don't think it's going to happen this year, but I'm with you. I think it's going to happen within the next 24 months. Last, but certainly not least, the Philadelphia 76ers will trade Ben Simmons if they don't go deeper into the playoffs. So say they lose this in this round, they'll trade Ben Simmons. Fact or fake news?
Well, there's a lot of talk out there.
I'm sorry. If they don't go to the finals.
I think either or, conference finals or finals. But I think there's a lot of talk around it. But if you go top 4 and you're right there to make the finals, do you really blow up your team? I don't think so. I think you make tweaks. But there is some public perception. There's the free throw issue. People are starting to rail on Ben a little bit. He's still an irreplaceable defensive player. His athleticism is elite in the league with what he can do in the open floor. He has some flaws, but so does Giannis, so does Zion. They have those same flaws. I think you just got to get in the gym and work through it. We hear about him spending time on that every offseason, and it just never really comes to fruition. And like you always say, the 3-point shooting videos we see in the offseason, we don't need those. We don't need those. I think if he can just get to 65, 70% from the line where they can't hack him and take his aggressiveness away, he's halfway there. The threes, who cares about the three? And you say that about Giannis and Zion, it's the same thing. The 3-ball, it is valuable today, but they're never going to be that guy that's going to shoot volume threes. So, I mean, his trade value is probably lowered a little bit with his playoff performance, and that's kind of the danger of going deep into a playoff series and deep into a 7-game series. His teams are going to try different things and try some gambles and risks that sometimes work and make you look pretty bad. I think that's what's happened. If they were knocked out in the first round or didn't make the playoffs, no one would even be talking about this. So I think he's a victim of being on a successful team, like you said, having that superstar status, being on a successful team, more eyeballs. You're down to potentially the last 4 teams left standing. There's a lot more critics now, so I don't think they will. I'll say fake news. They won't trade him, but I think that if they get to next season and they're in the same problem in the playoffs, I think that'll be in Philly for Ben.
Yeah, I think that I would say it's fact. I think that they would really look to trade him. I think that Daryl Morey is going to try to put a stamp on the team. If they don't, if they go to the finals or whatnot, if they win this series and they go to the conference final or a final, possibility of not, but if they don't go to the final, I think he'll look to make a move. There are teams I think that would deal you their player for him. I mean, he does make a lot of money. I think he makes about $30 million. So, there are people that you could trade to, but again, the shooting is such a problem. It's such a problem. And he needs to it's going to hurt his value long term with teams that really want him. And it's going to hurt his ability to win championships if he's going to look, if he's shooting 69, 70, like it's not great. It's not Mark Price, but it's not bad.
But even 60 pro, like 60, you can't really hack at 60s, low 60s. Like you're hacking a guy.
He shot 60. Yeah, he shot 61. That's the thing.
Oh, did he during the regular season?
He shot 61 for the year this year.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah, which is weird. And now, but how the playoffs are, it's a different animal.
Yeah, but still not comfortable. It ramps up. Still doesn't look comfortable. Whereas Giannis, Giannis looks, as strange as this sounds, he looks more comfortable, getting to the line.
Yeah.
But
Giannis does.
I didn't know he was 60 during the year. Because if you're at 60, you're very hard to hack because you're above a point of possession. If you're low 50s, 40s for sure. If you're low 50s, even some coaches don't like doing 56, 57% free throw shooters. They might take a one hack gamble and seeing if you make one or two, they stop doing it. But it seems like, they're going to go at him. Even if he's at 70 during the regular season, they'll probably still go at him in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the playoffs is such a different thing. So, yeah, but he needs to address it. Now, the problem, again, is national team stuff. Look, you want to play national team just like anybody else. Now, if he opts out of the national team, that's the one thing I would get in the gym, and do that all summer and deal with that because that, I'm telling you, spending 3 months on that thing and 2.5 months, however long he's going to have before training camp opens up, it's going to be huge. Maybe he can do both because again, he's not retooling his whole shot. Just like Giannis, higher arc, softer on the rim, give it a little gravity. He doesn't have to change his whole shot to do that. So I think if he does that,
damn, pro.
Same thing with Giannis.
I think you just gave him an out. You just fucking gave him an out for the national team, pro. Hang your head in shame.
First of all, he's not exactly Rocky fucking Balboa when it comes to working out in the summer, for what I'm told. So believe me, he's not going to opt out to work on his game. So that's number one. He'll play national team. Now, you know what? Since I'm opposite, should I say he's not going to play national team?
Well, you kind of just did. You said you'd rather him spend time. He might listen to this and say, yeah, pro's right. I'm opting out. Pro said it. Blame pro. So
everybody else blames me. Why the fuck not?
The other issue I have, pro, with Philly, it seems like Embiid's game and Ben's are polar opposites. Am I right in that assumption? Ben is a perfect guy you'd have on those old school Phoenix Sun teams with an Amari at the 5, just run and gun nonstop. Whereas Embiid's not that guy. He's slow it down a little bit. Let me get my touches. I'm going to punish you on the block. It kind of, those two worlds look like they're colliding. And I've mentioned this before, when they go to those ISOs with Embiid, the only place you can put Ben is in the dunker, and guess where his defender is. So you might be right as far as Morey, if they see Embiid as that guy, which health was always a problem, so they probably didn't want to make that decision. But Embiid's playing through injuries. He's having a MVP caliber season. I'm just not sure they are a long-term fit together. Yeah, I mean, the shooting has to rectify itself because I think, look, he's a great vision. He's obviously a very good defender. He's a good player. He's an athlete. He's all that. But he needs to be able to make a shot, especially in free throws. Just mid-range shooter. I don't care about threes, but make your free throws and address your free throw shooting. But, so you're fact. So I go fact. I say he'll get belt because you're not going to deal Embiid. I mean, you're not going to deal a guy who could actually make shots and then trade that guy away. Whatever you're going to get, you'll get. If anyone's going to get moved, it's probably going to be Simmons. If there is, and they got 2 all-league defenders, I guess. You could look at it that way too. Like if you're really worried about losing an all-league defender, you've got an all-second teamer in Thibault anyway. So yes, it will be interesting to see. I will follow that closely. We're not going to get to Q&As because us two idiots have managed to have a 2-hour podcast take 4 hours to record. So fantastic. We're going to wrap up episode 25. Thanks for joining us at Rogue Bogues. Hope you enjoyed. Please like, subscribe, and share all that fun stuff. Check out at Hoop Consultants online. Thanks, Pro. We will watch this week closely and have more to chat about next week.
Sure. Let's do it. See you guys next week.